This week's edition of NJBIA's Minding Your Business is brought to you in part by AT&T, helping family, friends, and neighbors connect in meaningful ways every day. From the first phone call 140 years ago to mobile video streaming today, AT&T innovates to improve lives. And by New Jersey Business Magazine, providing the critical information needs for New Jersey's business community for more than 65 years.
Welcome to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm your host, Bob Considine. Well, it's late June, which means the budget season is coming to a head. Here to talk about that and other legislative items is Chrissy Buteas, Chief Government Affairs Officer at NJBIA. Chrissy, thank you so much for coming back.
Thanks, Bob, for having me.
All right, so we are now at budget time. I know this is your most favorite time of year. We're looking at a whopping $10.1 billion surplus for the FY22 budget. Before we talk about where that money should go, I want to ask you, how did we get here?
Well, great question, Bob. So again, $10 billion surplus heading into the next fiscal year. Certainly a positive position for the state. Yeah. How did we get here? Well, again, we borrowed last year. Over $4 billion, and we had stressed at the time we didn't think the borrowing was necessary.
I totally remember that.
And in fact, that borrowing has uncallable debt at this point in time, so which means it can't be paid back right away. Right. And also tax revenues came in higher than projected. And again, NJBIA was saying to be mindful of how revenues were trending. They were trending pretty positively, and that's all come to play out.
Right. So when we talk about tax revenues, is that a matter of, all right, the housing market's on fire, we got real estate taxes coming in, we had stimulus payments checks with stimulating economy. Is that what this is all about?
And that's certainly a contributing factor to it. The federal government, the state of New Jersey, did do a good job of putting financing on the street to make sure that as many of our residents and businesses could survive through this. As you know, we have seen about over 30% of our small businesses either permanently or temporarily closed. But we have also seen those stimulus checks also benefit a certain segment of the economy with consumer spending. And so that's been on the positive side of things. Right. The concern moving forward, of course, is making sure that that's sustainable without having those government subsidies in place, and making sure the business community as well as our residents are able to function and to thrive in an economy that doesn't have all of this assistance coming to it.
Right. So I remember a year ago, the governor was looking at, I think he said a statement of, we could be looking at $20 to $30 billion in the deficit over 2 fiscal years. And now we have a $10 million surplus. Is this a matter of the forecasting was just way too conservative?
I think it's a mixture of things. I mean, certainly, a very conservative outlook on the revenue forecasts. And again, I think the numbers even then didn't from our perspective, highlight such a negative trajectory.
Right.
But again, I think here we are now not seeing that, which is a positive thing, but also very concerned about how that $10 billion is going to be spent moving forward.
Right. Let's talk about that a little. First of all, when we talk about the $10 billion, there's also more than $6 million in American Rescue Funds that's not part of this, correct?
That is correct.
My gosh. So obviously the dollar numbers are high, but so are the stakes a little bit. How do you think this money should be? I'm sure everybody's got an opinion on how this money where it should go. What is NJBIA's take on this?
We have weighed in very heavily on this and have during the CARES Act funding, when that was available as well, when the state received over $2 billion. So here we are now, $10 billion in surplus in the New Jersey state budget, over $6 billion coming in from the federal government. And that doesn't count the funds that are coming in also to our localities and school districts as well from the federal government. Wow. So what are we calling for? What has NJBIA been working with our respective budget committees in both the Senate and the Assembly Assembly as well as with the governor's office. Our main message is please make sure you spend this money responsibly. NJBIA has continuously talked about how New Jersey is an outlier compared to our surrounding states, how we're one of the most indebted states in the nation because of our pension obligation. And so here's a real opportunity for the state to right-size the ship moving forward and to put us on a clear trajectory to be sustainable in the future so that we don't see all the tax increases that we have talked about at length over the past few years, whether that's corporate business tax, personal income tax, property tax, sales tax, you name it, we're some of the highest in the region. We have the opportunity now to make sure that our state budget is sustainable moving forward.
Let's talk about workforce training a little bit. How important now, when we have a hiring crisis, is it that more money goes into workforce training?
Incredibly important. We hear consistently, multiple times a day, about the hiring crisis. This is certainly a New Jersey matter that's of top prominence, but it's also a national issue as well. And so the workforce training is going to be incredibly important because we have still one of the highest unemployment rates in the nation. And so jobs that may have been there may not be there in the future. And so we need to make sure we are reskilling and upskilling our labor market. This was critical before the pandemic. It is even more so now. And so NJBIA has been working with our legislative leaders and the front office on strategies such as making sure the basic skills funds are, replenished so that those employers who want to send their employees to training have the funds available to do so at our community college network.
Okay, got it. And unemployment insurance is a big deal too. We're looking at businesses are looking for a huge tax on unemployment insurance, correct?
That is correct. So to the tune of hundreds of millions to billions of dollars moving forward. And again, that's in direct correlation to the high unemployment rate. We used to have one of the healthiest unemployment trust funds at this point in time, as one would expect, that those funds have been depleted. The state had to borrow funds. And so here is a perfect opportunity to use your federal dollars to replenish the unemployment trust fund, which would help our business community across the board. So we have been advocating for that very heavily.
Yeah. I mean, that unemployment tax is basically a tax on jobs.
Tax on jobs.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And then small business grants is a big deal, right?
Absolutely. So again, worked with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, continue to work with them, want to make sure that there are funds available for our hardest hit businesses. And again, that's been mainly our Main Street businesses. They need the help to get back up on their feet. And so anything that this budget can do to address those concerns, as well as making sure our child care centers are made whole as well, because we can't get folks back to work if we don't have the opportunity and the availability to make sure child care is available to our working families.
I wanted to go back to one other thing you mentioned earlier about the pension payment. Obviously, the state borrowed $4 billion last year. NJBIA and others said there's no way you need to do this, but they did it anyway. But you can't pay back that debt. So the governor's agreed to make as part of his proposed budget, to make a full pension payment this year, which is historic, really. Do you think he'll add to that with all this influx of money?
First, let me just acknowledge that NJBIA completely supported the governor making that pension payment. Thought it was a step in the right direction. Again, one of the most indebted states in the nation. We have a huge pension obligation. I think paying down the pension is a step certainly in the right direction. We are hearing that there is consideration to spend even more on drawing down that pension payment because the new American Rescue funding does prohibit a state from paying down debt. So right now you have the opportunity, though, to put those funds towards a potential future pension payment, and that would be something that we would support as well.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we only have a few weeks left to the end of the budget, and it's almost like with all this new money that's come in, what the governor proposed back in February, you're almost going to start over, I guess, a little bit.
So budget negotiations are taking place as we're filming right now. And so this week will be incredibly busy as we anticipate the Assembly Appropriations Committee, the Senate Budget Committee coming in to deliberate on the budget that they're going to propose to Governor Murphy for his consideration.
Right.
Has to be signed by June 30th. So right now everything's in flux. And so NJBIA, our team, is out front and center working with our legislative leaders and the governor's office on these key priorities.
Right. Oh, I know where you're going as soon as this is over. Right? Just a few legislative items while we have a short amount of time left. I know there's a bill out there that's out to combat sexual harassment, which is a good thing on its surface. But I understand businesses would have some concerns about this particular piece. What is the deal with that one?
Absolutely. So Majority Leader Loretta Weinberg has been a real champion on making sure that there's no harassment in the workplace or anywhere in our culture. And certainly something that we commend her for. She's been a real champion on this issue throughout her entire career.
Absolutely.
However, with that being said, we don't believe this legislation accomplishes such and actually goes, too far in that it removes certain provisions in the law against discrimination. And what I mean by that is right now, to bring a suit of harassment, you have to make sure the employer-employee that harassment was severe enough to warrant such.
Right.
And so this legislation would claw that back. And almost if you were offended in a workplace, the employer could be responsible and be liable for those actions.
Right.
And so the employer community did oppose this legislation in the Senate Labor Committee this past week. Look forward to working with the senator moving forward. But it is something that the business community should certainly be aware of because, again, we want to make sure that our employees, our employers are protected in the workplace. There is absolutely no room for any type of harassment.
Right.
But we also want to make sure that attorneys and employees, that these are credible cases being brought forward, that discovery isn't open to, a litany of other things. It should be limited to just a harassment claim.
Right.
And so these are the types of provisions in the bill that would really change over 25 years of court cases and opinions on this. This would essentially overturn a lot of that. And we just want to make sure that, again, that the law against discrimination is one of the strictest. We want to make sure that it certainly it is and remains so, but it also has to be balanced to protect our employees and our employers.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Before you head out, I did want to congratulate you on you won a Woman of Distinction honor by the Girl Scouts of the Jersey Shore a few weeks ago. I know this is a pretty big deal for you. What was that like? How big of an honor is this for you?
So humbling. I was so surprised and honored, and just want to thank the Girl Scouts of the Jersey Shore for that tremendous recognition, for their commitment to developing girls with, leadership and confidence and character, which is just so needed today. And it's all about that team building opportunity. And so I am a huge proponent of the Girl Scouts. I think they do tremendous work. I'm honored to be recognized by such a great organization, and wish I could even do more to help them and to help their cause. But again, anytime that we can help our youth, especially our young women, now is a time, this, Bob, NJBIA has been really focused on making sure we advance women, especially in corporate America and the business sector.
Absolutely.
And it all starts when they're young. And so no better time than now to support such a great organization and their mission.
Well, it's greatly deserved. You are definitely a woman of influence. I've said it before, you're the hardest working person in Trenton. And I saw a video you did for this, and you talked about how if you're ever in a comfort zone, get out of it. Basically.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, well, that's Chrissy to a T. You don't settle for anything, which is, I think, very admirable about you.
Thank you. And again, I credit that to a great team I'm surrounded by. NJBIA, led by Michelle Sikirka, fabulous organization, and cannot talk more positively about the team, the government affairs team. I have the pleasure of going to work every day with a group that is so committed to the cause of making sure that our business community is represented before all of our policymakers in the state. And so, like I said, if you feel comfortable, you probably need to push a little bit further and get outside that comfort zone.
All right. Well, Chrissy Buteas, well said, and congratulations on that award.
Thank you, Bob.
When Minding Your Business returns, we'll have a look at the unique niche being carved by NJBIA member Real Antique Wood in Irvington. Stay tuned.
You're first. First to respond. First to put others' lives before your own. And in an emergency, you need a network that puts you first, that connects you to technology and each other, that's built with and for first responders. FirstNet, the only officially authorized wireless network for first responders. Because putting you first is our job.
Welcome back to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, we recently had the opportunity to check in with a unique NJBIA member business that reclaims, restores, and repurposes antique wood. In fact, when it comes to sustainability, as we learned from Anthony Saraceno, this place is as wood as it gets. Have a look. All right, Anthony, so we know Real Antique Wood has been here since 2011. I can see it right behind me. Where did your personal journey start with the company?
My personal journey here, I would say, takes me back to when I was a youngster. When I was a kid, Gary and Lisa being in the hardwood floor industry, they had refinished my parents' hardwood floors in their home. So I knew of Gary and Lisa. And then, long story short, the stars aligned. When they first started here, they supplied my mother-in-law with a fireplace mantle. We got talking, and then before I knew it, here I was on board with the actual physical working here in January, just a few months after the LLC was opened up.
All right, so very soon afterwards.
Very soon,
And
yeah.
for our viewers, Gary and Lisa Horvath are the owners.
That is correct, yeah.
So tell me about them in terms of they actually go out and find the wood that you restore, I guess.
Yeah, so I'll call them kind of like the barn scouts, you know. They're the ones that are out gallivanting the countryside. We'll get people that call the office here, maybe shot an email with some photos. And we kind of vet it first here, and then if it looks good enough, we give them the address, give them the contact info. They'll go out and actually see if it's worth us dismantling it.
No kidding. So these are barns, basically, you're taking down.
For the most part, yeah. Every once in a while, we'll do, maybe a home. We've done a couple homes over the years, an old carriage house, or even some warehouses. We're lucky enough to get in old factories as well.
It's astonishing to me that people know that they're going to take down a barn and they come to you. I mean, these are from all over the country, too.
All over, yeah.
So you have that reputation.
We do. I mean, especially out in the Midwest. I mean, everybody, it's totally different from the Northeast. Everybody knows everybody. They're a much friendlier type of people, I'll say, that, they're very comfortable with giving a referral, especially we do as we say we're going to do. So a lot of times it's put, I have a guy who can take care of that for you. So that's huge.
Is it a matter of some people don't even know that they have good quality wood to even give to, or do they assume it's all great and you're going to do some?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, and it depends on the structure. It depends on the person. But I mean, for us, we always want to try and save as much as possible. But the big thing is too is a lot of people just don't want to see it go to waste. A lot of people pull the barns down and burn them.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see that happen.
Yeah, right. It's a good point.
So.
All right, so now the barns are taken down and they're brought here, I assume.
Correct.
What happens? What's the process?
So the big process is first and foremost, it gets unloaded from the tractor trailer and then it goes into our inventory. It comes into the yard. We do kind of a final inspection. Anything that's not necessarily usable gets separated, and we try to make another plan for that. And then from there, a lot of the times, our client determines what that's going to end up being as an end product.
Got it.
So we have our basic profiles, our 8 flooring types that we offer on a regular, that we always have in stock, our mantles and things like that. So that's like first priority is to keep that queue, filled with mantles for sale for in the showroom and flooring.
Right.
And then from there, if let's say you came in and you needed 1,000 square foot of 8-inch wide only Southern yellow pine flooring or something like that, then we go into our stock, we pull the material, and then that's really where the fun starts to happen from there. So it comes in, we de-nail it. That is...
Yeah, talk about that. A lot of these barns have a ton of nails.
Loaded. Okay. Loaded. I mean, we take a few 5-gallon pails of nails out of, a tractor trailer load of material. So, it's ridiculous.
I got to ask before you even carry it.
Sure.
You guys must have a ton of splinters.
Yeah, we get used to them after a while.
Yeah, okay,
the calluses just get thicker.
Right.
So the denailing process is really the most labor-intensive, one of the most labor-intensive portions of what we do. Mm-hmm. Without denailing it, it's a hazard to our guys. It's a hazard to the crew. It's a hazard to the equipment as well. And it's very costly running into sort of any metal contaminants in the material.
Sure.
So that's really the paramount, that's like the first step up the ladder that really gets the whole process going. Mm-hmm. Once it's been denailed, typically let's say for the flooring, it'll go to our resaw, which is a horizontal bandsaw. And we'll cut those beams and joists or whatever the rough material is into flooring blanks. Once it comes off of that resaw, then it gets stacked and it gets stickered, as we call it. So that's like the preparation for the kiln.
Right.
We use little 1x1 4-foot-long sticks. Those are our stickers.
Right. This is with the stack and sticker.
Stack and sticker, exactly. So that's that process. So what those do is it allows the airflow in the kiln so that the wood can dry out evenly.
Okay, that's very interesting.
So then it goes into the kiln. Typically, it takes about a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Now take me into the process of the kiln, because this is a long process, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically you want to dry this stuff out.
Correct.
Okay.
So we want it dry, but we have to do it slow. So I like to, when I explain the process to people, a lot of times people picture, art class back in the day where you did a little clay pot, it goes in for 24, 48 hours and it's dry. Yeah. That's not the case. Right. So we're starting out with wood where the moisture content is going to be all over the spectrum, anywhere from 12 to 20% moisture content. Wow. When we're milling flooring, we're shooting for between 6 to 8%.
Okay.
We want it as low as possible. Mm-hmm. So with that, being that it's all over the spectrum in regards to the moisture content, we need to start off slow. We got to start off easy with it. We can't put it in the kiln at, let's say, 140, 160 degrees, right? Because the wood's going to expand too fast, and it's just it will structurally damage the material.
Okay. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but
sure.
How big is the kiln and how much could you put in at one time?
So we have 2 kilns that'll do about 4,500 board feet. And we have another one that'll do about 2,000 board feet.
So it's not like a plank at a time.
No. This is a couple hundred planks at a time, sometimes more, depending upon which kiln. So we started out slow. We'll start at about 90 degrees for the set point. Mm-hmm. Then over those days, we'll incrementally raise it up.
Right.
To the 160 degree set point, which is also our sterilization temperature. So we kill powder post beetles, any sort of wood consuming insect that may be living and feeding off of that wood. We're ensuring that we take care of that.
That insect is having a tough finish.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
for sure. They'll be nice and crispy when they're done. That's the end goal. So the biggest thing, we don't want to be supplying material that hasn't been kiln dried, that has the potential of still having wood consuming insects going into a customer's home. Mm-hmm. I'll give you this little fun fact. The scary thing, non-kiln dried material, powder post beetle, the larvae of the powder post beetle can lie dormant for 20 years.
Are you kidding?
20 years.
No
so
kidding.
Think about that. When you really put that into perspective, that's a very long time.
Sure.
And we hope, I don't want to be retired in 20 years, so we want to ensure that there's no problems down the road.
Hello, Anthony, you're not going to believe this. 20 years ago.
Exactly. We never want that phone call.
Yeah.
So the kiln drying and the sterilization process ensures that we're giving a bug-free product.
Got it.
So, and then from there, once it's been sterilized and the moisture content has gotten down to that single digit, it comes out, and then we really start the actual, the heavy-duty milling process, I'll call it.
Milling.
So
milling and molding, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So if for the flooring, it'll go through. We have a big Whitney S970. It's a 36-inch dual surfacer. It kind of looks like the old, big cast iron tank on the other side. We can show you that later. And so we put it through there, and we get all consistent thickness.
Okay.
And then from there, it goes to our straight line rip, which is an automatic feed table saw. It's got a big 14-inch blade on there. And we rip the edges on there, sizing it down, giving us all the consistent widths. And from there, it goes to the molder, which is a 6-headed Profimat molder, which does the tongue, the groove, and the relief cuts as well.
Okay.
So it comes out of that machine, tongue and groove, finished flooring.
Okay. And you sometimes just sell the flooring for people who weren't even sure what they were going to use? Or is it everything restored for a specific project?
So just kind of getting back to our showroom portion, we have our profiles, but then we do have countless folks that come in and say, I have this very particular need. I need this particular species, size.
Right.
And then we'll do the custom milling for them as well.
Okay. Are there occasions where people, they know this barn's coming down, they want that wood for something related to that barn or even on the same property? Has that ever happened before?
Absolutely. That's funny that you ask. We actually just had a very recent project. We had dismantled the barn back in January in Howell. Dated back to the late 1700s.
Right. Wow.
Beautiful. It wasn't a big barn in comparison to some of the ones that we've done in the past. But we had a particular client who caught wind of that we were taking this barn down, and they were from Howell originally. They grew up there, and they were doing some ceiling beams in their home down in Belmar,
right? And
they wanted those particular beams from that barn. So I mean that was an incredible project, and again being very recent. It really shows the full story from us taking it down to us milling it, and then being able to see it in their home as the final product. I mean, that's the home run.
It's almost like a legacy thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And have there been, over your 10, 11 years here, kind of projects where you consider the masterpiece for real antique wood?
I mean, there's a few that come to mind, and that's honestly, it's kind of a tough question to answer, but one of the most popular ones, I would say, back in 2015, starting in 2014, we had done a project up in Pompton Lakes where we had won Floor of the Year for that. And I mean, it was kind of one of those projects that you never really saw it coming. So Gary and Lisa doing the hardwood floors, they were, installing some floors in a dining room in the home.
Right.
And the customer at the time was like, I need something totally different. I want something, I have this idea. Can you make it happen? Right. Gary being Gary, yeah, sure, no problem. and knowing Lisa, she probably shot him a look that would have lit him on fire from 50 feet away. And then, we got talking a little bit, and they're like, do you think it's possible? I'm like, sure. I'm not one to back down from a challenge myself. And I'm like, let's at least go down swinging.
Right.
So we had these slabs that were originally intended to go in Gary and Lisa's home.
Okay.
And then they ended up being stored here for a while. Kind of thinking about it, and we're talking about it, and a couple months went by, and we prepped a sample for the client, and the client's like, I gotta have that.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
all right, so now it's real. Now we have to really make this come to fruition. So we were starting out with like 17-foot long slabs.
Right.
And so I laid them out all in the back shop, and the riser, the stair tread, and had to make the bullnose, but at the same time, I want to say it was about 14 stairs that we needed that continual grain to go up those stairs, almost like a carpet runner, but out of wood.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounded great. It sounded easy, when you're just on paper.
Sure. I can handle this.
So, I mean, that was definitely a very unique project. I mean, we ended up, Gary and I, scrolling, all the live edge cuts. So it was black walnut in the center, and then we had white oak for the rest of the portion of the stairs.
Right.
So there was that hard contrast. So it really jumped out at you. Lisa was the magic eye, standing down at the bottom of the stairs. We got to go a 1/4 inch this way, an 1/8 inch that direction, just kind of like the Hawkeye down below,
Yeah, teamwork, right?
Exactly.
What is it about wood, Anthony, in terms of like the beauty of it? It must be amazing for you to see something that was essentially junk for some person, and then it becomes this beautiful thing. Are you jaded about it, or is it something that still sticks with you every day?
It's something that sticks with me every day. I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I'm like, that's, that I don't go out. That's a beautiful piece of wood. I mean, it's all very unique, and especially on a reclaimed end of things. I mean, there's the age, the character, the patina, who made the barn affects what the final product looks like, because we're already starting out with a timber, with a tree that's been cut into lumber.
Right.
May have been 100 years ago, 150, 200 plus, which is not uncommon. I would say the average age of the wood that we have here was a building that was built at least 120 years ago. That's average.
Yeah, wow, that's a long time.
I mean, we had some material that went back to the 1740s.
Wow. To
give you an idea. So when you think about that, for a beam that was 25 foot in length, that tree was probably already 100 plus years old.
Wow.
So
job satisfaction with all this over the years?
Incredible. Love it. I mean, it's truly it's a dream come true to be able to go to work and enjoy what you do and be surrounded with a team that we have here that feels the same way. I mean, that's, in my eyes, the American dream.
All right, a real great story there from Real Antique Wood in Irvington. We thank them for having us. We thank you for joining us on NJBIA's Minding Your Business. We'll see you next time.